perhaps one of the talking points of the evening, and I think a little bit of the season in a little way. Actually, he hasn't played loads of footy, obviously, but because this is kind of his competition and now we are in the final, it does raise the question, Steve, Caoimhin Kelleher, where are we at with him? Because he hasn't quite been himself all season long, and I think tonight was a little bit more evidence of that. He wasn't flawless, it definitely wasn't perfect. Couple of decent saves in amongst it, but a couple of very dodgy moments as well.
Yeah, he's the Gattuso meme, sometimes really good, sometimes not so much. And like in the first half, he gets a really vital hand to a cross that I think it's going to be nodded in the back post by the cut over Reed. That's a really good save. Conversely, Pereira hits the post because Kelleher comes for a cross that he gets absolutely nowhere near. He should have been favoured for that ball all the time. I think that long range shot, I thought it squeezed under him. That ultimately, it's a save, so fair play, but like it wasn't the most convincing of saves. I think my point of view on Kelleher, and obviously looking at today's game, I'd probably have to say 6. Yeah. Because, like I say, some parts were 8 and some parts were like 4, so we almost average them out a little bit. If they score that goal, we're all going, oh no. And that's the issue with Kelleher this season, actually, compared to the last League Cup run. I wasn't that bothered that he started the last final. I thought he half his performance. Not only has he earned it because Jürgen had promised him it was his competition and it was the man management thing to do, his performances in that competition for the most part had earned it. I'm more worried this year. I don't think Liverpool can afford to drop him for the final. I mean, he could. It's a big call, but I think it would be harsh on a personal level. But if you were on a performance level, I don't think it would be the worst thing ever. You know what I mean? Alisson's the best goalie in the world anyway. But I do worry about Kelleher in that final in particular. That he was brilliant, you know, made some really big saves. Obviously scores a penalty as well. Didn't save any, but score one. But he made some big saves in the 90 minutes. The one from Mason Mount in particular stands out. Today it was kind of a bit of a microcosm of a season, like you said, other than he wasn't really punished for it. In that he's had some pretty bad moments, and I thought a couple of those today, in particular, that one coming for the cross. It's so alien for me to see a Liverpool goalie do that, because Alisson very rarely isn't. Everyone makes mistakes, of course, but sometimes they're not that. Like that's a really strange one. And again, the save that he saves that doesn't really save, that did worry me. Flip side, he does get the one in the first half, so that's why I've gone for a 6. But how are you feeling about him? Looking at that final, I think from a personal level, Dan, it would be really harsh to bin him off. But like, I'm not as confident in this version of Caoimhin Kelleher than there was in the 2022 version of Caoimhin Kelleher. You'd
be hard pressed to be, because as you say, he's looked anything but sort of assured. He hasn't looked himself for quite some time now. All season, really. I don't remember him putting a complete performance in whereby you go, that was flawless. I don't think he's done that yet so far. There's been moments pretty much in every one of his games whereby you think, hang on, he's a little bit shaky there, whether it be with his feet, whether it be with his handling, whatever. He hasn't quite looked himself, and it started the back end of last season. I thought his final day game against Southampton was particularly dodgy, to be honest with you. So it's been a relatively long-term thing now with Caoimhin Kelleher. What it is, what it's put it down to, I'm not quite sure. Whether it be he does want to move eventually and he wants to play more footy, whether it is just a lack of regular football.
Which is strange.
Because he never plays 21s either, so he doesn't play a lot.
No, but he's played more games this season than ever.
Yeah, true. So, but does that catch up with you eventually?
Yeah, at some point. Listen, he's a backup goalie. As backup goalies go, he's about as good as you can get.
Absolutely.
Unless you've got a real first choice, unless you're Arsenal, where you've got 2 lads vying to be number 1, which probably means your number 1 isn't good enough, so your number 2 is decent.
Well, neither of them are anywhere.
When you own the best, when you own the best goalie in the world, it's hard. But what I would say is that I do have less confidence in this version of Caoimhin Kelleher than the last one, and I think tonight, like I say, it showed the real good part of his game. I think with his feet, he's actually outstanding for the most part. He's really calm. There's parts where he comes out and he's playing centre mid on the halfway line at some points.
He can do it.
Yeah, he can. But then, I like the instinctive save off that. It's a really good hand. That stop he called over. I must emphasise that it was a really, really good piece of goalkeeping. But there were a couple of other moments where I was like, and that again, it's mad because I'm thinking like Conor Bradley, for example. We'll move on to in a bit, of course. But like, he gets done for the goal, and yet I don't feel as bad about him. And maybe that's because I'm taking Kelleher's year as a whole. So if I was Jürgen Klopp and I didn't have to look, I don't have to deal with Caoimhin Kelleher, the fella. I'd be in the stands or on a watch along. Ali would be in goal. I put him in goal. I always would for this. But Jürgen, and I don't think
relationship.
He's got relationships to build. I think Alisson would half feel a bit shitty as well if he did it. He'd do a good job, of course.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't pick him. Personally, I wouldn't pick him for the final, but I'm not Jurgen Klopp. And I think Jurgen Klopp, as Liverpool Football Club manager, probably has to pick him because it kills him if he doesn't.
Not only that, I think also like there's a back catalogue of Kelleher stepping up for Jurgen Klopp, so he has a trust level there. And albeit his performances this season don't necessarily warrant a place in a final, I think that's a fair enough thing to say.
But we're in a final,
of course,
and he's played every game.
Yeah,
so fair.
No, exactly. Yeah, ultimately, yeah. So he's got us this far, you could probably say as well. But I 100% get the argument for Alisson being the goalkeeper for the final because of how big the occasion is, how much it means to win it, of course. And there was even people prior to tonight saying, do go Alisson tonight, because Kelleher hasn't quite looked himself. But yeah, I think in terms of the man management, in terms of what it would do, the negative impact it would have on Kelleher's confidence. And also for me, I'm slightly the other way because I'm in a similar boat to Klopp, and not so much that I know him and I've got to deal with him the day after, but I've seen enough of Caoimhin Kelleher to know he's a good enough goalkeeper to play in that game of football. Now,
but the next game of footy he's going to play is going to be that.
And
he might play against Norwich.
FA Cup. Yeah, and there might be another FA Cup game in the interim period as well, so maybe we get 2 looks at him potentially.
Usually Alisson plays the FA Cup.
But I'd go Kelleher.
Yeah, so who knows? But you're right. You're absolutely right. Is that can go one of two ways. If he plays against Norwich as a stinker, and he's going low in confidence. The good thing about 2022 Kelleher, he was full of confidence. Yeah. This version of him, he doesn't look the same.
Something's not right.
He doesn't look the same. He looks like he's doubting himself a little bit. Like I say, Steve Hoare wouldn't play Alisson.
Well, Klopp probably will.
Jurgen Klopp probably has to.
Yeah,
and that's the difference. I've got no emotional attachment to that guy. I'll never have to see him. I don't have to work with him every single day. I won't ever have to rely on him again. Jurgen might have to. You know, Alisson could do it. He's in for 4 weeks, and you've killed his confidence. So exactly. I do understand it. Yeah. But I think I am.
Question there.
I'm just more nervous about his performance, and I think today shows it. Some really, really great moments, and somewhere it's like, I've not seen that from you before, and that's why I ultimately end up giving him that.
That's it. I think when the game I referenced in terms of the back end of last season, we all kind of went, oh shit, there's a lad who hasn't played any football for a long time. Whatever, it's Kelleher, we know he's fine. And all of a sudden you see 2, 3, 4 of them and you go,
he's played loads of Europa League, he's played all the Carabao Cup.
And there's been moments in most of them where you go, I'm not quite sure about that. But yeah, it's an interesting one. It's one that Klopp will have to deal with a bit closer to the time, obviously. But yeah, I think ultimately you will probably just fall down on the Kelleher side because there's a human side to it. And also, as I mentioned earlier, there is previous of Kelleher being more than good enough to play in these types of games. He just has to recapture that between now and then somehow. However he does that, I'm not quite sure.
Anyway, get 6.
Yeah, he gets 6 because it wasn't very good.